All right, well, let's get started. I'll keep an eye on the attendees. 'Cause I think Megan Haggerty will be joining us too, but she'll be remote. It is now 7:07 p.m. I'll call the July 1st, 2025 meeting of the school building committee to order as typical. Just do a roll call, and since everybody's remote, it makes it a little bit easier. So I'll call them as I see you. Glenn Hoffman,
Yeah.
Nathan Hutto,
Here.
Kerry Hurley,
Present.
Mark Loring,
Here.
Principal John Redden. Welcome. Here. All right. And Sean O'Rourke. Couple people running late, so we'll keep an eye out for them as they're coming. So we've got our quorum. So the first thing I'll do is open it up to citizen speak for agenda item number 2. We reserve the first 15 minutes of our meetings for any citizen that would like to speak. We ask that you just state your name and your address and limit your commentary to 3 minutes. So I'll keep an eye on the attendees and see if there's anybody wanting to speak. And not seeing any, so we'll move on. Pull up the agenda. So agenda item number 3 is approval of our past minutes. I gotta admit, I really miss PMA Consulting for their help in gathering the minutes. I've got drafts of both minutes started. I just didn't have a chance to submit them to everybody to review. So we won't be able to vote on them tonight, but I will get them prior to the holidays. So, prior to our next meeting, so we can get those. I definitely don't want to fall too far behind. Moving right along to item number 4, which is old business update discussion, MSBA Module 1. So with MSBA Module 1, I met with the superintendent a couple weeks ago. There is a questionnaire that he's working on. That's one of the kind of milestones. The next one that's coming up for us. Yeah, 1 second. Megan's here. Co-host. Just give me 1 second, please. So as I was saying, hi Megan. So as I was saying, for module 1, as far as some of the subcomponents that we're doing, one of them is an educational profile that the district needs to fill out. So we've provided that to the superintendent. He's currently working on it. Mark, I don't know if you have any other update from talking with the superintendent, just basically through school committee or anything like that.
Yeah, I added you, Sean, on the but we're kind of at a final draft. Dr. Redden added a few things.
Okay.
John and his team added a couple things. I pulled some stuff from the statement of interest and from the Aero Streets kind of schematic design. Asked for some questions on things related to that. So I think we have a draft. I think I tagged you in that, Sean. Just say like it's good for a look over, and then obviously defer to you on like sharing out with just the whole committee to have folks' eyes on it and sign off on. But I think it's mostly good to go. The only piece of that document that I think we were missing was the master facility. I forget what it's called, but like there's some master facility document that Superintendent Phelan was going to follow up with Tom McCarthy on.
Okay.
But otherwise, I think it's complete.
Recording in progress.
Hold on 1 second, just make sure we got it. Sorry about that, Mark.
No problem.
We had some feedback here. I apologize. There was that Google Doc that you sent to me.
Yeah. I can drop it in the chat here for folks.
What I'll do is I'll take a look at, I did not see that mainly because it was a Google Doc. I was looking for attachments before, so I apologize. I didn't get a chance to look at that. So, all right, so that's good news. So, so the questionnaire, then we have a draft in hand ready to go, right?
Yes, again, the only thing lingering is we had to attach some documents, and so I attached the NASDAQ most recent NASDAQ report and the original DRA space needs study.
Yeah.
And then I think I also need to attach the Arrow Street schematic design study. But then again, Tom McCarthy, we need they call it a master facilities plan. Those are kind of his section 5 of the questionnaire.
Section 5, all right.
So,
And that's separate than the other facilities one that that Tom's gonna work on, right?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, it just under section 5, it says, please attach to this questionnaire any executive reports or conclusions of reports or studies related to coordinated program review, master plan, facilities plan. And,
Okay.
when talking to John, he thought Tom had something like that and was going to follow up with them. So it's possible that this document doesn't actually exist, but that's the only thing on my end that I think needs follow up on.
All right. All right, that's good. The other component in module 1, outside of that, and thank you for the update, is the facilities worksheet that Tom has to work on. So that's one of the online forms that they have. So I've got in touch with MSBA this week. For folks that are going to need access to the MSBA's portal for the town, they're I don't want to call it restrictive, but you have to essentially sign up to get access, and whether it's just read only or write. So Mark, I think with some of the work you're doing, it'd be good to kind of get you access there, and others as this goes along. If you feel you need access for anything, just let me know. The superintendent has to sign off on it. And then essentially we submit it to MSBA, you'll get credentials and you'll be able to go in and do it. The Tom McCarthy's one, which is another one of those components for the facilities assessment, outside of what Mark was just talking about, is another one. So I'll get a login credential, get Tom to sign up for that. One of the things, just to let everybody else know too, some of the questions that come up for the facilities one, through a friend that had gone through this process before. He gave me some of the cliff notes that he had for what the questions were. Essentially, I forwarded those over to Tom so he could take a look at them. I'll forward that to the remainder of the committee so everybody can kind of see what the questions are and relates to, for the facility and stuff like that. So, for module 1, the next kind of waypoint that we're hitting is July 30th, which is that document that you're working on, Mark. So knowing that we have that in hand now, that's good news that we're good there. The facilities one that I talked about that Tom's doing, I don't think it's due till September. So overall we're in good shape. We're in good shape. And I apologize again, Mark. I didn't see that document when you sent it. So
yeah, no problem.
All right. In regards to anybody on the committee, are there any questions or anything so far for where we're at? Seeing none. Let me keep moving. I'm gonna pull up the agenda. Sorry about that. Agenda. All right. The next one we touched on a couple of times is like the project timeline. So I took some time and kind of went through kind of where we're at with some of this. And let's share my screen. Just give me 1 second. And just let me know when you guys can see it on your end. All right, so this, oh. This is the right one. Hold. Nope, this is wrong presentation. Sorry about that. Stop sharing for a second. Too many presentations open. That's the one. Screen. There we go. Let me know when you guys can see it. Oh, good. Good. All right. So what we had here, just for some of our newer members, Megan and Nathan, and John. For us, we were formed in 2019. We used the first couple of years to kind of go through developing a program for what we're looking for land. Towards the end of 2021, we identified Gow Road and worked towards town meeting in 2022 with the land swap, the original land swap that we were doing. We took the land swap at that time that was using all conservation land. I think it was a total of like 6.8 acres, and we revised it to bring it down. So we revised it to essentially I refer to as land swap 2.0. We passed that in May of 2023. And then, we worked with our consultants, PMA and Arrow Street, to develop a schematic design. While we were working on that schematic design, the governor in July of last year, at the end of July, signed the bill for the land swap kind of into effect. And, our goal last summer was to basically aim for the presidential election to have a debt exclusion vote for that would allow us to complete the design, finalize the construction, and kind of move towards a new school in fall 2027. So as the slide states, that was our previous timeline that we had. Our current timeline, if we look at this, same as everything up till last year, except MSBA invited us in December of last year. So for us, it was kind of like a reset button that was hit at the time. So we got invited to MSBA, and for us, we were able to start. Hey, Aqua. Sorry, Aqua to share. So for us, we weren't able to essentially start the process with MSBA until May 2025. So with us right now, as we were just discussing, we're in module 1 because of eligibility. We're hoping to kind of get through module 1 by the fall, probably October, just by the way the MSBA's board meetings are going. So with that, after module 1, module 2 essentially has 2 components to it. One is hiring an owner's project manager, in which case the process by that, we have to issue an RFP, interview OPMs, make a selection, and then get MSBA to, essentially approve that. That then flows into the second selection of an architect as part of module 2. And with that portion is done by MSBA's designer selection panel, which will have 3 seats out of, I think, 12. Essentially with that, it's just taking more time. So the intent of that module 2 is probably going to take about 7 to 8 months by the time we finish. So that's going to put us into 2026 at some point before we even allowed to start our feasibility study. The town administrator, Nick Milano, when he gave a presentation to the select board. Oops, sorry, Glenn.
Sorry.
No, all good. So the town administrator gave a presentation, essentially 4 timelines for what he thinks or what he's seen for examples for module 3 for their duration. In speaking with him, the duration is probably going to be about 2 years for what it's going to take. And part of that, everyone has to understand, is we're not just picking up where we left off with Arrow Street and PMA. We have to study three options. So the first option is a renovation of Cunningham School. The second is a new middle school. And the third is the second is a new elementary school. And the third is a new middle school. So with that work, it's going to take some time to do. After that's done, we have to get approval from MSBA for approved schematic design, and then go into module 4, which is that schematic design. It's mislabeled here as feasibility. The reality is that's pushing us further and further out as we're looking at this. And I'll forward these slides along for everybody to take a look. So the examples that the town administrator provided was Canton, Galvin Middle School. They were invited in March 2022. They started module 3 in the fall of that year, and then module 3 completed essentially a year and a half later in April of 2024, starting module 4 in August 2024. So you can see these timelines there. Similar for Quincy. They started their eligibility period 2021. They got invited to the feasibility almost immediately right after. And then about 2 years later, they completed their feasibility study into their schematic authorization. And then their vote for that followed in October. So I bring these all up. These are the other ones with Dedham and Marlboro. I won't go through it to kind of bore everybody with the things, but the durations here I'll advertise on MSBA's website. So I bring it up because mainly for us in the bill that we're looking at for the land swap, as I mentioned to everybody a couple times, we have a reverter clause in there that basically says if the town does not appropriate money for the construction of the school before June 30th, 2028, essentially all the land reverts back to conservation land. So when I look at that, apologies. So if we go back to this timeline that's here, when we passed it at May's town meeting 2023, the reverter clause essentially puts us in while we're in module 3 of feasibility study. So it's either we have to shrink this schedule down to get us to a vote sometime into 2028, or look at other options. So, for me, this is one of the things I think for us as a committee, we need to start taking a hard look at for this. So, enough talking on my end. I'll kind of open it up to everybody and let everybody, discuss this. Aqua.
Oh, thank you, Sean, for sharing this with us. Most of the activities you've highlighted here has already been done and documented by the committee. What prevents us from sharing that work, which was done not just by the committee, but by professionals, probably of the same caliber as an MSBA would require, so that not only do we not lose the land, we can take advantage of the ever-growing inflation, which is going to move the cost of this project significantly higher than it should be.
Yeah. So the part of, as Mark talked about, right? So as part of this educational profile that he's submitting under module 1, there are attachments that we're allowed to attach to there, namely the space needs study that we did with DRA, or the school committee did with DRA back in 2018. And then the reports that we've done so far with Arrow Street and PMA up to last year. But they're being essentially a strict program, they won't let us just take that and run with it, right? They are going to make us look at an addition or a renovation to Cunningham, Dr. Redden's school. They're going to make us look at what it takes to build a new elementary school and study that. And they're going to make us look at.
Well, we did look at it.
Not under an MSBA guideline. So yeah, as I've said multiple times, this is a hard reset that we've hit. And so we're essentially starting over.
Should we also, my apologies to my other committee members asking 2 questions at a time.
Yeah.
Should we also, as a committee, review the financial benefit of this MSBA? If it's going to delay us another 7, 8, 10 years and throw us back into looking for land, meaning we have to buy land, is there really a financial benefit at that point? Or should we just go borrow money as town and do what we need to do?
Well, part of it, we did look, if you recall, with PMA last time of if we went on our own or if we went with
Yes.
MSBA and looked at that for that break-even point, it was about 5 to 6 years
Yeah.
from when we started.
And we did not, in my recollection, we did not consider losing the land because if we have to go buy land, the price, I believe, the recovery time would be much lower.
Correct.
Thank you, Collins. Thank you, Sean, for the answers.
Yep. Yeah, Gary, you get your hand raised?
I had two questions as well, and one was in a similar vein as Aqua, which is we're, a few months since we had that kind of review with PMA. And I'm just curious as I continue to watch this timeline extend and extend and extend, and we continue to be in a climate where construction costs continue to grow, even since probably that comparison was done. Is it worth possibly taking another look at, is this the best, most economical? And I feel like so much work has been done and it feels like it's just being completely lost. So that's my first question.
Yep.
And then if we were to just stay the course and accept that this is the way people want to go, which is the MSBA route, I'm curious if there's a way to go about extending the reverter clause.
All right. So to answer your first one, as far as like an additional analysis to like, should we go with MSBA or should we not go with MSBA? I'm not sure who would perform that. You know what I mean? Because when we did it before, we had PMA on board as our OPM, so we had ability to kind of leverage them to look at this stuff. I know they were looking at certain escalation costs that were built into that. I know, with recent things, it becomes a little bit harder to do that. I think the reality of to pull the plug, for lack of a better word, right now to switch to not going with MSBA would be hard. Because, well, not hard. I mean, we could do it, but I think it's a discussion that, us as a committee would have to really think hard about for that, because we would have to resurrect all the stuff that we have, re-contract with everybody that's there, and then bring this entire thing back to a vote, and hopefully, and we would need the select board to put it, for them to put it to a vote. 4 out of 5 of them would have to approve it. So I think we would have a hard time, just knowing how we did last year before we even knew MSBA, getting the select board to approve it for a ballot question. I think if we were to not go with MSBA, forego the reimbursements, again, knowing there's a play against reimbursement and escalation costs, I think it would be hard. That's just my opinion, but I welcome others to.
Well, there's the other element that Aqua added about the cost for land. If we
Correct.
cannot achieve hitting this in time for it to revert,
that
is a real concern.
Yep. And so that kind of plays into your second question for the reverter clause. Yeah. So I think the reality is, like, for a reverter clause, it will require another home rule petition. So it would basically, I assume it would be an article at town meeting. We would need to have Megan's back. We would have to have a vote. It'd be similar to the land swap, just not with land. It would just be a home rule petition. I think it would be a 2/3 majority for what we would need to do for it. But essentially it would take the legislation that's drafted or that's already signed by the governor and change, the reverter language from 5 to 10. All the other language would remain the same. So I can talk to people if that's what everybody wants me to do too, and like start looking into that. If I mean, if the concern is that we're gonna like people, if the concern is to leave MSBA because we're concerned we're gonna lose the land. However, if we could extend the reverter clause, would that still allow it? Would that make people more comfortable to stay with MSBA knowing that we're not gonna lose that land? So, not sure. And Nathan, you have your hand up too, so go for it.
Well, I'll just say exploring what feels like a pretty straightforward extension request because just the reality on the ground has shifted through no one's fault. It's just how this works. That feels like it's worth exploring at the next possible town meeting, because getting clarity on that very early on will clarify the path forward. If we're gonna lose the land before this process is over, then to me it's not a process we can go forward with. Sean, I was wondering on the timeline that you shared on the slide, it looked like from invitation from MSBA to approval of funding was approximately 4 years.
Approximately, yeah.
Approximately 4 years, maybe a little less than 4 years. That is longer, I think, than all of the examples that you gave. Although I think there was that one that was about 4 years, but the rest were somewhere between 2 and 3 years. And I'm wondering, is this timeline a conservative estimate that if we hit the gas on some of these, is within our control, or is this a realistic estimate of how long it'll take now?
Yeah, so when I was looking at it, and just to walk everybody through it, so module 1 right now, our goal is, like, my goal was to hit August, the MSBA's board meeting in August. But we still have to get the questionnaire in. That's going to feed into MSBA doing some work within module 1 that they're going to need to do. I don't believe we're going to be able to hit August, so I think we're going to be more towards October by the time we submit our documents and have them approve it at a board meeting. So I'm looking at probably towards the end of this year. The OPM onboarding, I was assuming 2 to 3 months by the time we issue an RFP, review it, and come back and make a selection, which was kind of similar to what we had before when we did it ourselves. And then similar for the architect one, I was figuring, again, because that's on the designer selection committee, that we fall into MSBA's kind of scheduling. We carried about 3 to 4 months for that. So about 7 months total. And it's not as precise, down to the month as I was doing it here. The 2-year portion of that, this may slide back a little bit, if we're somewhere back in 2026. But the reality is, for getting to this vote, I don't think we'll be able to pull it back far enough to hit that May 2028 or June 2028 timeline that we had there. I can walk through more of these. Part of what I was looking at too for those other ones, I'll go to it, was mainly the start of module 3 to the completion of it. Year and a half here, starting in fall 2022, figuring completing spring 2024. Again, 2022 here to 2024. So it was about a 2-year duration for some of those for the feasibility study by the time they started it till they completed it. And again, I'll forward these on to everybody to take a look at. I put this together mainly just to highlight the concern. I think as you guys are starting to see it, as I've been aware of or keeping a track of for a while is, you know, getting to the necessary action to avoid that reverter clause is concerning. So, I think for us, for the most part, we're looking to just identify that tonight. And, we're going to have another meeting in 3 weeks. And, between now and then, if everybody on the committee is fine with it, we can start investigating, what it would take to put an article together. What are the voting requirements for it? The mechanics to to change the reverter clause from 5 to 10 years. So if that's what everybody's okay with, I can extend, talk to whoever I need to about that. Yeah, Mark. And then Aqua, sorry.
Yeah, I agree with the statements of others that to me should be the first step before thinking about abandoning MSBA, just given the funding implications of that. So yeah, agree with that. I think the other question I'd have is what type of construction work would qualify as constructing the new school building that would negate the reverter clause, right? I imagine you don't have to complete the entire school building by the end of that 5 years. So, right, is there something in there where, right, we've moving the road in and of itself and clearing the site, that would be sufficient, or maybe not. I'm no lawyer to know kind of what that is, but I think if we are looking into avenues related to like how do we get around this 5-year reverter clause, I just raise that as kind of another avenue to look at.
Okay. Yeah, and just to be clear, it's not that we'd have to complete or start construction, it's allocate funding for construction. So I think with that, it would be, similar to the point you made, Mark, of like moving the road. If we allocated funding to move the road, does that check the box? And avoid that because we're moving the road to construct a school. So I'll add that to the list of things that I'll ask of like, what is the threshold by which we need to do to, avoid that reverter clause? Aqua, yeah, sorry.
Some of the services or all service requirement are services we already retained, like the OPM. Does anything prevent us from saying this is our preferred OPM? We've already gone through the process.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for us, I don't know about other committee members, I was comfortable with the last OPM. I thought they did a great job.
Yep.
Why change them they may not be the best in the world, but that would save us 5-6 months both running around looking for something we already have.
Yes, so so again, for us, because we're into this entirely new process that's governed by the MSBA, we have to play by however MSBA tells us to do it, which says for OPM, we have to send an RFP out. People have to respond. PMA is not excluded from responding, so they can respond to it. Most likely, they probably will. And then we, as a committee, will interview all those OPMs and make a selection. So PMA submits, and you like PMA, you vote for PMA again. The good thing with the OPM is we get to decide. It's not a designer selection committee where we only have a couple seats. It's our entire committee makes the decision on the OPM.
So for that, can we truncate it? Is there look into it? And I know what the answer would be. But just to add to moving the road, we cannot move the road if we're not sure where to build the school. We can't just move the road while we're still thinking of where to build the school, right? Is that
we could? So if you recall, so the parcel of land bisected by the road. So we have to move the road to kind of merge the two parcels. So that's when we were talking with Arrow Street and PMA before, when we were going for all the funding last summer. The intent was to have an early site package to move the road. So construction wise, that's our first portion of the project that we'd be doing. Move the road, combine the two parcels, make one big land mass and then build the school on there.
I am on
Yep.
board and aligned with that. What I'm saying is, if MSBA is saying we should go do all this other stuff, we can be studying while moving the road. But then we're preempting the output of the study. Right? I'm just trying to see how do we get this thing done on time.
Yeah.
I think I've taken up more than my share. Question.
No, it's welcome. Oh, Mark, you have your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure I understood. Aqua, are you saying we should look at avenues in which to move the road while we're doing this other investigation, or that we're not?
I am thinking, Mark, that it would not be logical to say we're studying many other options and yet spending money on moving the road.
I guess I disagree, because I think you could, again, other than a situation in which you are just doing an addition on Cunningham, where then the parcel's not necessary for the purpose of a school necessarily, although I think we can all think of, like, there are lots of needs in the town, and potentially, right now the road kind of, as Sean's saying, cuts the two parcels entirely. So if that parcel is ever going to be utilized for something related to the school's fields or ancillary educational space, whatever it might be, I think the moving of the road kind of creates the separation within the parcel and maximizes the constructability. And whether that's in, an elementary school, a middle school, an upper middle school, or something else, I'd imagine most situations that kind of is feasible. But again, we also have like 4 years. Well, we don't have 4 years. How many we had? I guess a couple of years before we need that. And I would hope that we'd be, if we're not completed with kind of all the analysis, we're at least further along and have a good sense at that point that, like, oh, actually things have changed now. An addition project makes complete sense versus where it didn't before. But yeah, in my mind, I just think we should keep something like that in our back pocket to say there might be some risk, but the risk of not having the land far outweighs the risk of maybe slightly needing to.
So we're both about saying the same thing. If you argue it that way, in my mind, I'm not a lawyer, then you separate moving the road from building a school. Therefore, allocating money to move the road cannot be said that is the same as building the school. I don't know if you see that much. If we're saying we move the road, just moving the road, then we divorce it from part of building the school.
We're getting a bit into the legal thing, but I guess my request for the chair would be, let's look into that. Let's talk to a lawyer again. We are not lawyers.
No.
Your logic isn't totally like crazy. I understand what you're saying, but I think
if I were in opposition, that's what I would say. I'm fully for this. And I'm just thinking, how do we make? I think both of us are the same.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is, for the three options we're looking at, as Mark alluded to, right? 2 of them, we have to find land to build a structure, right? So even if we move the road and we said we're moving the road to create land for a school, then we could allocate it for either of those 2 options. You know what I mean? Because the reality is, as most of us who've been here the whole time, there's no other land. Like when we work with these consultants and they're gonna study, we have to build an elementary school. They're gonna do all the same work we did, and they're gonna come up with the same answer of that's the best.
They haven't made another land since the last study.
No, but the reality is, for me, in regards to that parcel, it's like all roads when they look for land around the town is all gonna lead back to there. So if we had to move the road, I think that parcel is never going to go away of like not being for a school. So, it gets tricky. So what I'm hearing is, I'll talk with some folks to find out, one, what are the mechanics to extend the reverter clause? What's the thresholds for votes and, what we'd have to do. Town meeting, I know, is planned for October 22nd or something like that. I'm looking at Megan to see, but we'll see. But it's in October or something like that.
October 27th.
27th. Thank you.
Yeah.
So October 27th. with that, just knowing the rhythm and the cadence for town meeting, it's like we would have to have these, if we're doing an article or anything like that, something ready to go, I would think by August. And so and essentially, thinking mid-August or something like that, that gives the warrant committee the ample time they're going to need to review this, even though it may seem simple, it's probably not going to be if we did it. So I would say, let me do some homework on this and, we come back to it at our next meeting. And I think that will, if it's doable, back to Carrie's original, 2 points that she made, if it's doable that we can extend it, I think that weighs into people's decision. Do we stick with MSBA or do we not stick with MSBA? Because, to your point, Aqua, is why are we doing MSBA if it's too long and we lose the land? But if we can extend it, then I think sticking with MSBA still makes some more sense.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, that was a lot on timeline. So, anything else from anybody, while we're just talking overall timeline and stuff like that? I'm looking at the people that are here since 2019 and they start seeing 2029 on there and stuff. It's, yeah.
I hate the timeline. Just gonna go on record with that. It really bothers me.
I'm with him.
I have to say it. It just really bothers me.
Yep. All right. Well, part of it too, for that timeline is, similar to what we're doing. There's this initial module 1 that we're in right now. They gave us 270 days. We're coming up, I think, on 90 days so far. We've got probably 80% of it crossed off. So I think for us as a committee, the work is keep our foot on the gas, put pressure on MSBA, get them to move as quickly as we can, and push them as fast as we can to get this done as quickly as possible. You know what I mean? But I still think even with using the term with our foot on the gas, I just don't think we would still hit the 2028 timeline to get funding allocated and stuff like that. So not to beat that dead horse, I've got my homework assignment. I'll reach out to some folks and start doing that. So leave it at that. If there's nothing else, I'll move on to the next agenda item. Seeing a lot of head shaking, so that's good. So new business discussion, school building committee roster. We submitted to MSBA the updated school building committee roster. At our last meeting, John Cohen was still on from the select board. He's stepped down and Megan Haggerty has now joined us, newest member of the select board. So, hey, Megan, thank you. Thank you for joining. Also, as we mentioned, there were non-voting members that we put into that roster. So you'll see emails now that have a couple extra names on them. Dr. Redden is as our principal representative. Superintendent John Phelan is on there. Amy Dexter from town administrator, town finances is on there. And Tom McCarthy and Nick Milano. So Nick is mainly on just for I think to fill that roster spot, but I'm not anticipating him attending meetings and stuff like that. So in regards to the overall roster, just see if anybody else has any questions or wants to say anything in regards to that.
Welcome.
Yep. All right.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. Nice to have you, Megan.
Hi, Megan. Welcome. Doctor, welcome.
Happy to have you, Megan. Appreciate it. Yeah. So the other one that I had for item 5B, which is discussion vote, school building committee town budget. So I've been working with Amy Dexter and town administrator and PMA to get their final invoices. What we're trying to do is figure out how much remaining balance we have that's been allocated to school building committee. So all of our allocations have basically, as I mentioned at previous meetings, were allocated essentially out of free cash. So with us entering when we complete module one, getting into module two, the funding for that is the $1.5 million that were allocated at the town meeting in February of this year. So the remaining funds that we're going to have left over in this budget, we can essentially get back to the town and allow them to utilize it for other purposes. There is a couple of hiccups going on with PMA's invoices that they're working on it right now, so they don't have that final number. I'm working on getting it for our next meeting. But again, just keeping everybody updated on kind of where we're at with that, and the intention of it of just whatever cash that we have allocated to us, or free cash that was allocated to us, hand that back to the town so they can utilize it. Aqua.
A few minutes ago, we talked about some studies, and the question was, I think you raised it, it would have been nicer when we had support, PMA support. Why not save the money? It's already our money and hire somebody to do that kind of study so that we don't have to run in circles to get that.
Yeah, so that is one of the discussions I want to have. So whatever that money is that's left over. So for example, we still have a contract with BSC Consulting to do boundary surveys for some of the land swap land that's on the access road that we voted on at the last meeting. My discussions with town administrator, I stated exactly that. I would like rough numbers. I don't know what the numbers are, but if there was 200,000 that was left over,
Yeah.
do we need all 200,000, or could we operate at like 50,000 and give back 150 and just hold on to some? But I agree, because the money that's allocated under MS for the 1.5 million is for the MSBA study.
Yeah.
Anything we want to do outside of that, it would be nice to have supplemental funding for that. So I agree with you. It's just a matter of once we get that number as a committee, we should talk about that. Okay. Anybody online? Any questions in regards to that? All right. So outside of that, our future meeting dates, the rhythm we're trying to keep right now is every 3 weeks. So that would put us 3 weeks out from today. Well, on the Monday. I apologize about the Tuesday meeting. Again, wish I had my OPM to help schedule some of these. But we're looking at July 21st as our next meeting, and then August 11th, the following meeting after that. So, I think with some of the discussion points we had today in regards to timeline, reverter clause, stuff like that, those two meetings will be, important to attend. So if you guys could just pencil those on your calendars so you make sure you're available for them. I think it would be good, some good discussion. It will lead into kind of where we need to get to for our articles, if that's, the desire of the committee for the town meeting. So any questions in regards to our next meetings? Hearing none, seeing none. All right, and then item 7 is I would, as always, entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move a motion to adjourn.
All right, Aqua moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Mark, second. Any discussion? Hearing none. We'll do a roll call vote because we're online. Carrie Hurley,
Yes.
Glenn Hoffman,
Yes.
Mark Loring,
Yes.
Nathan Hutto,
Yes.
Megan Haggerty,
Yes.
Aqua Abad,
Yes.
and Sean O'Rourke, yes. All right, we're adjourned. Have a good 4th of July, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you very much.